We've received quite a bit of interest in my free to be workshop. So to that effect, beneath this video is a link that will give you a description for the workshop. And we've also included a special discount. So if that's something you would be interested in, I would invite you to click that link, and I hope that you would find the course to be quite beneficial. One of the most common questions I receive is, can narcissists be treated with psychotherapy? And I know that many of you who are engaging with narcissistic individuals have this wish, this desire that these individuals who are very difficult can actually be treated and can make some transformations. And the answer to the question, can narcissists be treated, is the treatment possibility is always there. And if a person has the desire to go through what is necessary to get to the other side to be a much more healthy person, anyone, including a narcissist, can go into that space and can have a sense of optimism. But the problem is, when we're talking about narcissism, the narcissist's starting point is that they're so consumed with oneself. They're so have a need to be in control. They have an agenda. They can be manipulators. They don't really want to hear from other individuals that, yes, the possibility is there, but the likelihood tends to be low. Typically, narcissists don't even show up for therapy until there's maybe a very strong major personal crisis and something dreadful has happened to them and they cannot deny it, and they may come and seek therapy, sometimes on their own volition, sometimes because everyone insists that they must. Other times, narcissists will seek therapy because typically a family member or partner has already suggested or gone into therapy, and so the narcissist may come in to more or less debate and argue and prove their point, and so typically that tends not to work. Often narcissists would come into my office and they'd almost play the role of the prosecutor, like, well, let me explain to you what's wrong with this other individual, Your Honor, and so that doesn't work. One major question that narcissists might ask if they want to give you the impression that they're in a change mode is simply this, and that is, okay, what do I need to do to be a better person? Now, I want to focus on that verb to do. Narcissists think in terms of action, which is not a bad thing. They think in terms of measurables, grades, impressing other individuals, meeting the standard, which they like to be the one that maintains the standard. What do I need to do? And one of the things that I explain to narcissists and anyone else who would want to listen is, that's a good question, but that's not our starting question. I want to see if we can shift that focus on the verb to do and put the emphasis on a different verb, and that's the verb to be. What do I want to be? It's an entirely different issue, and frankly, your doing comes out from your being. When we talk about being, we're talking about your essence. Essence comes from the Latin word that means to be. And essence is defined as the inner qualities or the inner features inside of you that make you what you are. And when we talk about examining your essence, we're talking about characteristics that go beyond doing. Characteristics like your trustworthiness, or your integrity, or your spiritual principles, or your values, or your conscientiousness, your sense of meaning and purpose, your understanding of love. All of that goes into the making of your essence, your inner being. Essence is the part of who you are that drives you. Now, there's a tip that I want to take from the 12-step programs that gives us an extremely good starting point for the healing process. And those of you who are familiar with the 12-step recovery program, you know step number 1 states very simply that you have to recognize that you're powerless to deal with your own addictions on your own. And you realize that the addictions have taken over your life and you no longer have control over anything. That's step 1. I think it's brilliant. I think it's genius. And you can see that And accepting that as your beginning point for a therapeutic adjustment, it means that humility is going to be your starting point. Humility is going to be an ingredient that you draw upon. And again, it has doing elements, but it needs to be part of your being. Now, I want to break down that step one that I just mentioned here and show you how that becomes extremely difficult for narcissists. For example, that word powerless. You've become powerless over your addictions. Narcissists dread thinking of themselves as being powerless. They want to be in control. They're drawn towards themes of dominance. They're drawn towards themes of correctness. And so for you to say, well, actually, you're going to have to admit how powerless you are, that goes so counter to how they naturally think. And then another thing, as we think about that beginning point that I mentioned, is seeing narcissism as an addiction seems terribly unnatural, especially to that narcissist. Now, let's keep in mind that narcissists have very addictive inclinations. Now, obviously, we can be talking about drugs and alcohol and other kinds of things. But in addition, narcissists are addicted to their own craving for control. They're addicted to your deference. They're addicted to your admiration, and they're addicted to status or being unique. They're addicted to having to be correct. They're addicted to having the place of recognition. One of the things that we could say that defines narcissism is feed me, feed me, feed me. They seek out narcissistic supply, and it's going to be difficult for them to say, I need to let go of my addictions, because they have to admit that there's an addiction in place in the first place. Likewise, they have a hard time acknowledging that narcissism itself has actually taken over their life. Because many times what they'll say is, well, it's not as bad as you think. And if anyone's a narcissist here, it's not me, it's you. And so just being able to acknowledge that they have a deep problem and it's completely overwhelmed them, that's going to be difficult. And then also, let's go to that word control. We say that I no longer can control anything. Narcissists have a great difficulty thinking, you mean you're asking me to drop the need for control? And the answer is, yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. If you're going to make some changes, you have to realize your controlling disposition is part of the problem. It's central to the problem. We need to let that go. Now, like I say, for therapy to work, you have to start with humility. And sometimes you need to learn how to refine yourself even when no one joins you in the effort or no one praises you for the efforts that you're making. Therapy is the byproduct of reflective thinking. Therapy means that you do let go of the illusion that life is all about you and getting what you want and having to have the final word. That's what's going to be necessary. So in order for us to have a confidence that therapy can make a difference, there are multiple questions I would want to ask that narcissist if they're saying, I want to change. And by the way, as I go through these questions with you, I want you to ask these same questions of you. So if a narcissist says, I need to change, or if you're saying that person needs to change, here's some of the questions as a therapist that I focus on. And that is, okay, if you want to change, what does it mean for you to have a balanced approach toward life? How do you define a whole you? What are the traits that you want to have most prominent? What are your standards and values that you draw upon? How have your past experiences impacted your today? Do you have a good angle as to the role of history in your life? What's going on inside of you when you deal with interpersonal conflicts? You can tell the most about a person's maturity by watching how they manage conflicts. Can we go into that space and examine what that's all about? Another question I would ask of anyone seeking therapy is, can you remain consistent with your healthy initiatives even when others push against you? In other words, do you have boundaries? Boundaries doesn't mean you get to say no to everybody. Boundaries means that you do have that definition of yourself, and you're going to stay inside of that despite other individuals not wanting you to stay inside your well-conceived schemes of life. Or another question is, are you willing to listen? And I mean truly listen and tune into others' ideas and feelings about who you are. In what ways do you need to let go of that illusion of control? How has control taken over your life? I know you don't want to be controlled by others, and that's legitimate, nor do you need to be in control. What are some of the elements of control that need to be focused on? What are some of the most common ways that you feed off of other individuals' inappropriateness? How do you play off of their less than wonderful characteristics? What does it mean to be conscientious? And by the way, conscientiousness is one of the top indicators of a person who's emotionally growing. Do you have an idea of what that looks like? Are you willing to commit to that? Another major question is, what is love to you? And how can you most consistently access your commitment to love? How can you move forward in your growth even when other people just make no sense? In other words, can you make room for ambiguity? Can you make room for loose ends? And then a huge question is, what is your source of inner strength? Is it your skill set? Is it your response to other individuals? Do you find your strength in God and spirituality? Do you find your strength in the stock market? Do you find your strength in acclaim or affirmation? All of those elements go into the making of therapeutic adjustments. And you can see why therapy is not just a one-off kind of thing. It's something you have to be deeply committed to. And you'll notice that it's going to be very difficult for narcissists to go through a therapeutic treatment program without being consistent and being open to the accountability that's there. So, can narcissism be treated? The availability's there. The nature of narcissism, with its self-centeredness and its entitlement, is such that it goes counter to so much of what I'm saying here, but that's what it would take in order for a person to get there. And again, I want to go back and say, I'm hoping that even if that narcissist is unwilling to go into that space, I'm hoping that you can always be in a therapeutic mindset saying, I want to grow and I want to heal and I want to be a healthy person. If the narcissist can join you, we're gonna not just say, okay, everything is all problem solved, but we're gonna say, okay, show me what you got. What is your essence? Not just your doing, but what is your essence? And then let's see what happens with that. So I hope this gives you some good markers and measurables to answer that question. Can it change? Can therapeutic change happen? And let's just be realistic in terms of knowing who you're dealing with and realize sometimes it might happen, many times it doesn't, but at least this gives you some good food for thought. I just lost Gus on that one. Hey, I hope that videos such as this can give you some good things to think about. If you've not already hit the subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. Gus and I will continue to bring more videos in your direction. I know that when I talk about this, it prompts you to think, maybe I could use some therapy. And maybe this is something that could be beneficial. You know that I've been sponsored now for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. I've received good feedback. All you have to do is go through the link that we have provided below. If you go through our link, you get a 10% discount on the first month. There'll be some forms you have to fill out, and then they can help you select the therapist that would be helpful for you. Please get the help you need if that's the need there. Likewise, I have my therapeutic classes and courses, and you can sign up for those. Each course has multiple videos with written documents, guided questions, ready, set, connect about having good connection skills. And this is me about those boundaries, free to be, finding yourself despite the controllers. Likewise, I have my webinars that have already been presented, but you can still purchase those. We have our podcast, we have my books, plenty of resources. So, yes, treatment is possible. It's sitting out there. There are many good therapists that can help, or support groups. It can happen, but it has to happen with a very willing and open mind, and that's where the real question mark is. I hope that as you consider your growth trajectory, that you can be committed to the elements of life that are going to make you the truly successful person: dignity, respect, and civility. And what it does for you anyway, it positions you to be a person of peace. I hope that other individual can join you, but if not, I still want you to be able to find your peace.